So the co-host already you made, or I have to make also? Rohit, Rohit Kishan Ray, right?
Yeah.
Hello, Rohit. This is Sunil.
Yeah.
Can you can unmute? I think you're unmuted. Yeah. So if you are
Yeah.
ready, I think we can just start.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's now 3. I hope it is okay to start now.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess the screen is visible and everything.
Yeah, it is visible. Everything is fine.
Okay, then I'll first begin by starting with problem number 1, which is explain the physical significance, the physical meaning of displacement operator, and to show that the operator transforms position and momentum operator. So first, let us just try to get that what does this operator displace. So what it displays is something of this form. In detail will be I'll discuss later. So zero state is converted into a coherent state alpha. It also displaces a coherent state to another coherent state from beta to alpha plus beta. And this displacement introduces a phase into the equation of displacement. So the question is that how do we get a more physical idea? And that is where the second part of the operator transform part of the problem comes into play. So we will begin by identifying, as we did in the tutorial 1, that A and A dagger is two operators in form of Q and P, where Q and P are conjugate position and momenta operators. So once we do that, we can solve for Q and P and we get these two equations. And this is pretty straightforward. Now, let us come back here at the definition of this displacement operator and see what we get. So we can operate with A from one side, and since this entire thing by definition is alpha, so we get this kind of relation. But we also know that alpha being a coherent state is a eigenstate of A annihilation operator. So that is where we get this alpha state back with an eigenvalue alpha. Now let us also operate with D dagger. So reverse displacement if you say so. And then we can also see that this part goes to there here. And then we are left with D dagger, alpha and this. These also can be written in this form. So alpha can again be broken apart in this form. And once we do that, we come back to this equation. So this suggests one thing, that D dagger A, D, I'm suppressing alpha, is equals to alpha. But also we must notice this fact that A on 0 gives 0. So if we use these two facts together, then we get a relation of this kind. Once we have this relation, we can generalize that for A and A dagger as well. Now look at this. We have an expression of D dagger A D, and we have an expression for D dagger A dagger D. And once we use these two expressions, why we need these two expressions? Because we need to solve for this. So we need to find expressions of this form so that we see how D transforms Q, and we also need expressions of this form to see how the similar operator transforms P. So Q and P we have here through this expression, and we also know what are the relations for those expressions. Once you put those values here and do a little bit of algebra, you can actually show that D alpha, D operating on Q gives it a shift, and operating on P gives it a shift. And these two shifts are the displacement that we were talking about. Yeah. So so the next question that is there in the assignment is find the energy separation among the consecutive displaced Fock states. So what we do, we we do first is we keep a tab of the displayed state. So let us begin with the first equation. This is the equation which defines a displacement operator for us in a way. So since this is displaced from 0, we keep a tilde on top of it and we say that this is the displaced Fock state. So this is the displaced Fock state and this is the original Fock state. So these two. Similarly, we can say similar things about when the operator is acting on state 1, and we can call it 1 tilde and so forth, so far, and we can write it generally for operating on n, which goes to this. And note that these expressions which I was trying to develop here has been kept blank, so we will talk about it later. Now let us come back to the Hamiltonian. A Hamiltonian can be expressed in this form, right? Once we have the Hamiltonian, we can also find, and since the Fock state is just displaced, so the Hamiltonian is not going to change. So what we can do is we can find this expectation value, and once we do that, see, these are tildes, so the entire calculation is happening in this state. This state. So we express now from this equation and this equation, we can write tilde to be this form. And similarly, this tilde is also written in this form. So our Hamiltonian remains as it is, and that is why it is written in different ink. So once you figure out those things, then Hamiltonian using this expression can be broken apart in this part, right? I hope up to this everything is clear. In case it is not, you can stop me anytime and ask the question. So once we have these expressions, as you can see that we are in need of exact expressions for this part, right? This thing and also this, so that we can tell apart. So again, we begin by we try to rederive this expression that I was leaving blank. So first 0 is what it was before. This comes directly from the definition of displacement operator. Then we start with 1 tilde, which goes like this. So 2 tilde will have something like this form. And there will be we are not expressing with 0 yet, so let us keep it that. Once we have, then we can write a general form for n. Similarly, for the bra part, we can also write. Once we have these two, we can express that in form of this expectation value. And throughout this computation, I might use these two signs of factorial irreversible. Reversible. So in case you see either this or this, don't get confused. Both of them are factorial. So once we are here and we have this expression, we need to compute it and we need to see how it looks. Before that, we can do a redefinition of variables, and we call that this new operator, B dagger, to be A dagger minus alpha star I. 1. 1 is the identity matrix. Now, this is a very interesting thing. It actually says that B dagger is creating with a shift. This is the shift amount. So we can have a similar kind of expression for the this is a displaced Fock state, so DFS. So B dagger acts on a DFS state in a way A dagger would act on a state in the original Fock. So that means that B dagger will be creating state in this form with this expression, right? And this we derived in the tutorial 1. Once we have these data, we can express a number operator in the displaced Fock state in this way, like we did so in the standard Fock state. So Fock space. So instead of having A dagger A, we are having B dagger B, and we can expand this term and we can find this expression. Let us also notice one important thing. If the number operator acts on the numbered state from the DFS, it gives a similar kind of eigenvalue number value as happens with the original Fox. But what is happening is basically that we can consider that each of the states are being displaced, right? So the number 2 is going to number 2. So n is essentially equal to n, which tells us that we can write it this form. That is like 99% of the job is done. Now all we need is to find the difference in energy. So En plus 1 tilde minus E of n tilde. This is from the standard expression, and you get an energy value. Yeah, which is so basically the gap. This is actually 8. I don't think there will be half. I think that I have this. Anyway, the gap remains same. So the gap does not change. What the displacement operator does, it basically shifts the level up or down, but it does not change the interlevel gap. So that is one interesting thing that we can learn from this problem. Do you have any questions here? I guess no. So yeah, I think I'll move on. So the next question is an interesting one. It says that explain physically why we do not get equal distribution of photon numbers in the output ports of beam splitter when we have equal distributions in the input ports. So to do that, we can begin with a schematics of a beam splitter, and we consider a 50-50 beam splitter here. So these two, okay, there is an error. I will call this 0 and I'll call this 1. So these two ports, they have an input of 1 and 1, and we are interested to find out what happens in ports 2 and 3. So this is the standard beam splitter operation for 50-50 operation, right? So this is a standard unitary matrix, basically a rotation. As you can see, the input state is 0 have 1 and 1 has also 1. So we can write this expression in this way. That is still standard. And also, this is the relation, commutation relation between the operators of each of the ports. So basically, the ports we are considering that they are indifferent to each other, so they are independent, and all those features, all of them are inscribed into this commutation relation. So let us try to figure out that what this expression actually means. So once we have an expression like this, and we have a relation like this, so what we can do that we can write A2 and A3 given this relation in form of A0 and A1. But if we are trying to go from A0 to A2, so from these two to these two ports, we will have to invert this operation. So basically, our new operation will look something like this. Yeah. Once we have in this form, we can easily write A0 and A1 in the form of A2 and A3, which I'm not going to write down. And on having those expressions, if you feed them back here, then you get a relation like this. Okay, so that leads us to, and also there is this identity relation that if nothing happens, then nothing is happening. To say it out simply. So basically, these two relations, when taken together, can give us an expression of like this. This is a very interesting expression because, as you can see, that in the input node, either in 0 or in 1, we have 1 1 each. But when we are getting the output nodes, we are either getting a 2 0 or a 0 2. So basically, the distribution in the nodes ports have changed, and this is called HOM, Hong-Ou-Mandel effect. This is pretty famous experiment. But what happens for these states? Why don't we get 1-1 relations? Because if we get 1-1 relations using this beam splitter matrix, you can find out the transmission and the reflection coefficient, these, they sum up to 0. 1 by root 2 square is half, I by root 2 square is minus half, and they sum up to 0. Whereas they should sum up to 1. Since they sum up to 0, so basically it means that this kind of expression, they are of the form of destructive interference. So this effect in cooperation with Hong-Yu-Mendel effect explains that why there is this bias in the distribution in the input and the output. Right. So after that, we have a straightforward to be done, which is that take the displacement operator d alpha and express it in this way, then show that it can be further expressed in this form. So obviously, we all know this is the standard harmonic oscillator kind of potential, which gives us this relation, where we have defined alpha star to be. So what is alpha and alpha star? These are basically complex numbers. X and p are also, so x, p, these are real numbers. X and p can be Argand plane from where we are taking alpha, because the displacement is complex displacement. So once we have identified alpha star and alpha of this form, we can again use these relations and invert them to find out what x and what p are. So basically the x and p are here scaled x and p is dimensionless length, you can call them, where we can call this part h cross by m omega root over to be xc, a constant, and root over h cross m omega to be pc, and they satisfy this particular relation. Why we are using this? We will see it in a moment. So alpha can be expressed in this form. Now, if we go back to the definition of displacement operator, it has a term which goes something like this: alpha, I think alpha a, a dash. Yeah, I have written it down. Anyway, yeah. If you have a relation like this, we know alpha can be written in this form, and we know a and a dagger has been written in form of x and p. So we put those values here. So these are a short, and these are capital X and P. Small a, small, and capital X, capital. Take the product, expand it out, we'll get a relation like this, where I have kept p and x, x and p back to where they belong. Remember this normalization kind of, sorry, rescaling, my bad. Now let us consider two successive displacements of alpha and beta. So this is what it is, any defining feature of this operation. Then we can invert it so that we can write. So basically what I'm trying to do here is take displacement alpha and displacement beta, and we know that there are some phase and this operation. So we can invert it, right? We can take d alpha of beta and write it in form of some phase and P alpha. So that is what is being done here. Alpha and beta, again, as they are complex numbers, they can be broken up in like this kind of coordinate like pairs, right? Order pairs. So we have sums of that, and we can put in the corresponding values, and we see that okay, we are back to where we are, what we wanted. So this phase got inverted into this phase, and dx prime is there. Now this is a general result, and we can prove our the result that we want to prove by doing this substitution. So you put x equal to 0, x prime equals to x, p equals to p, and p prime equals to 0. You get a relationship like this. We just put it. Yeah. Now I think yeah, we need the I minus subtraction of intensities in terms of input port operators for homodynamic experiment. All right. So if anybody has any questions. Next. So we'll start with the beam splitter expression again, and we are considering a 50-50 beam splitter. This is the schematic, as you can see. So we define this difference in intensity measurement to be output of this type, A2 dagger A2 minus A3 dagger A3, and this can be expressed using this relation in this form. Here are the explicit computations from using this relation that you can do calculate and check it for yourself. So basically what it is that A2 will give you, okay, let's do one. A2 will give you something like yeah, the hats are there even if I have not written them. And A3 is similar with I, A0, A1. So you put in those values. So A2, A2 is basically the square of this, and A3, A3 is basically the square of this, and you get the expression like this. We use these results to find the I0, I minus square, which goes something like okay, I square minus this. If you expand it, you can write it in this form. A0 dagger A0 plus A1 dagger A1 plus these dilutions of square. Now we are interested in observing the dynamic. Where? Here. To do that, what we do, we start with identifying a variance. Sorry, standard deviation. 1 by, yeah, square root. So let us define input state in this form, and let us take an unknown state psi, which is inputted in 0 mode, 0 port, and basis state. Sorry, this is wrong. What I should write is, so there is we take a local oscillator against which the measurements are done. So this is a coherent state produced by that local oscillator. Okay. So you take these values and you write it in this form. Then we can feed that to find the expectation values, because we need this expectation value and we need the squared expectation value here. So take that into account and expand this. So we don't know psi and we are not worried about psi. We can take care of it later. So this is how by psi, this label means that it's being broad and created by psi state. Okay. And these are the results we know from before. Like I have said before, that we can write alpha as a complex number where alpha mod is the modulus of it and ei phi is the phase. Having used we can use this fact here. So mod alpha goes out, and this e to the power I phi, this goes as e to the power plus I phi and minus I phi. Then what we can do is we can rearrange the term and express it in this way. And look at it. This actually looks like we can do a variable renaming here. So we call this thing x of theta. And x of theta, so this makes our equation look nice, obviously. And also this theta can be a tunable parameter which we can use to change our different kind of x's. And I will come back to it later. So similarly, we can calculate I square, expect I square expectation. And once we have these expectations value, then we can just calculate the standard deviation. So this is what I was talking about. We can do also this different type of theta values. So for x theta equals to 0, you get back a dagger plus a by 2, which you can call x1. And for theta equal to pi by 2, you can get back a minus a dagger by 2i, which you can call x2. And you can do calculations with it. Yeah, so basically, I had to talk about one more thing, and that is where you get the phase and amplitude. So this x theta, the modulus of x theta, where is, yeah, this alpha we get from the local oscillator, right? So this is the amplitude, and this e to the power I phi, this phi is the phase. Now, interestingly, this phi is also incorporated in theta. Theta is something of the form, yeah, phi. So the phase is into the theta data. So that's it. So continuing from here, the question we have is, what is the difference between homodyne and heterodyne experiment, and what is balanced and unbalanced beam splitter? So basically, there is a local oscillator, like I was saying before, which is the coherent state generator, which you use as a baseline for the measurement, against which all the measurements are seen. So for the homodyne experiment, the radiations that you can measure through these experiments have the same frequency as this LO or the local oscillator. But in case of heterodyne, mainly the basic difference lies that the frequencies are different. Yeah, that is the basic difference. And there are many other differences. I guess they have been discussed in the class. Regarding balanced and unbalanced beam splitter, I have written it in the form of reflectivity and reflection and transmission coefficient. So the balanced beam splitter has reflection and transmission coefficient to be equal to each other, which you can write it as T by R mod to be equals to 1. If the ratio is not equal to 1, then the beam splitter is unbalanced, of course. And yeah, this unbalanced beam splitter then can be used to do some displacement kind of operation, which are quite interesting. So we are arriving at, yeah. So 7 is basically an extension of 5. So in 7, the question is prove that the balanced homodyne detector gives an output proportional to the signal field quadrature that is in phase with the local oscillator. And as we can see that this is the expectation value that was derived in question number 5, right? So like I said, alpha is the amplitude of the local oscillator, and chi of theta has the phase input in this form. So that explains that, that explains what was required in the question. Any queries so far? If not, then I will move on. So let's talk about the emergence of classical features in splitting laser light through a classical beam splitter. Okay. So basically, we can use a laser light as an approximation with a coherent state, right? So consider this alpha to be a laser light kind of. Now we are putting it in one node. So let us draw the schematic for beam splitter again. It will help us understand. Yeah. So this is a beam splitter, let's say, and these are the 0, 1, 2, and 3. Right. So 0 has incoming 0 mode and 1 has incoming alpha. And now let us look at this equation. What we have done is alpha can be written as this, right? So this is one expression. Now we know from uh, previous solutions that this can be trivially be equated with this. So this is the connection, and d1 alpha can be expressed in this form. If you ask why, because we have just solved similar kind of expressions before. Ah, okay. Sorry. Yeah, we have used similar expressions here using this relation. So yeah, it's taking time to load. Yeah, come back. So once we have this expression, and remember we can write it in this form because A2 and A3, these two commute, they're independent, and that is why we can write this expression in this product form. Once we do that, we can write it in I alpha by root 2 by 2 state. And what it says that quantum mechanically, if you look at it, basically the probability goes half here and half here. And classically, if you look at it, so basically this talks about there is an I intensity, which is input, right? And this input state I intensity is getting divided into I by 2 and I by 2 intensity to different lasers. So as you can see, you can reproduce the classical results from the quantum beam splitter also. Now, what about so basically what is happening is that you take input of this kind, sorry, you take an input of this kind, you get output of the kind. Right. So you take one laser and you get two different lasers. The reverse is merging of lasers. So you should have two lasers in two modes and they should merge to some single mode output, right? Something like that. So this is the reverse of it. And actually that is what the second part of this problem also talks about. That talk about merging of these. So I have written the schematics for how to do that. So in this case, as I have discussed before, the input state goes as this, and yeah. So this is how we identify alpha and beta to be the two complex numbers. The theta is phase of alpha, phi is phase of beta, and so on, so on. So the input state can be used, can be written in this form: d alpha and d beta, using the definition of displacement operator, and d alpha and d beta, this product can be written in this form. Yeah, okay. Check this. This is similar kind of expression that we have just used before. Now this part, this alpha plus I beta, okay, and this we can identify as another complex number gamma. Similar thing we can do for this I alpha plus beta. So gamma is basically I or delta, but let it be that aside. So that is how we do. So then we can write these two equations of this form: d2 of delta, gamma, and d3 of delta. What it means that if you operate this on 0, 2 and 0, 3 state, then you get this kind of state. Okay. Using the expressions here, one can calculate explicitly what gamma and delta are, and then can see that the merging of beams, like we are talking about, has taken place. Yeah. Okay. All right. Then we have a short numerical 9 and 10. In the 9, we have a coherent state alpha with alpha equals to 5. And we are to calculate the mean photon number, the standard deviation in the photon number, the quantum uncertainty in the optical field. So nice. So basically, this is a quantum coherent state statistic. If alpha is a QCS with alpha equals to 5, this is how we find alpha, right? So we use number operator, we act on it. We know the number operator expectation value gives us number. So basically, that is what we are doing. Yeah. Once we have this, then we can define standard deviation. Why we are because this is from the Poissonian statistic. So we can write it in this form, and then you can get the standard deviation directly. And if you use this uncertainty relation, then we can get the quantum uncertainty optical phase through this expression. This was pretty straightforward. Next, we have a helium neon laser, which is a 10 megawatt. This is the power, and it is operating at 632.8 nanometer wavelength, and it has a responsivity of 0.43, and a load resistance of DC. So we can use this property, responsivity is that this. And this is the expression for intensity, where theta is the efficiency. You can put in the values for H cross and omega you can get from here. I is given here. And then if you put all these values, then you can get eta. I have not computed this. You can do it anyway. And then we have P we know, I we can find out from here, and then I can be fed back into this to compute eta. Yeah, that is there. And also the noise can be calculated from here to this relation. Yeah. There are some average relations for intensity that you can use from standard physics. So yeah, I can do the numerical, but I thought that why bother? You can do it, I guess. In case you can't, then let me know. I will do a detailed test. So now we move on to we have 4 more problems to do, and yeah, I will give hint of up to 11. 12, 12 and 13, yeah, yeah. I'll do 11, 12, 13, and 14 I have not done, so I will leave that for next time. So 11 is basically, you have to do it step by step, and that is how the problem can be solved. So basically, we have a beam splitter, and my drawing is not very good. Sorry for the garbage. Yeah, we have a
Hello, Rohit.
yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there seems to be some break in the the video is not very smooth. So the voice is also not so smooth.
Am I audible now properly?
Yeah, now it is okay because it felt a little bit lagging.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry for that.
Yeah, I think now it seems to be okay.
Okay. Yeah, maybe there
Maybe
is
you
something
can
with the refresh rate.
switch off the video. I don't know whether maybe that will.
Yeah, let me try that.
Yeah.
So this is the basic description of the experiment. So this is one beam splitter. It goes, and these are mirrors. This provides us with the stage. Yeah. So we have what we'll do is we'll do it step by step, and I'll just put in the hints in this one. So we have input state, which right, or we can write it as, because both of them are in the question. Now, consider this first, coherent state first. Okay, so basically what is happening? You start from here. You say coherent state. Then it goes to this principal one. One. What happens? We know from our previous derivation that this state gets distributed, right? So this happens, and we have. So this is 0, 1. I will not label this because there are 2, 3, and all those things. It can get messy. So this is 0, 1. Yeah. So after that, what happens that one of them, let's see this. So this is 3, and we are tracking this. So okay, this will go through this. What will it do? It will produce an e to the power I theta phase, right? Two is continuing, and then we have an e to the power I theta alpha, and then so this mirrors they will produce a pi by 2 phase. We are not interested in that. What happens is that if you put that 2 instead of 2, what you get is this one to be distributed again. This can be computed using the beam splitter matrix directly also. So yeah, at each step you use the beam splitter operation, which was defined to be A2, A3, some unitary matrix, and A0, A1, right? Which is the R location. Right? Anyway, this is what is for this case. Yeah, and for the single photon case, I'll try to keep the image here. And for single photon case, what we get is similarly plus beta 1, and so the single photon case is either or case, either this port or that port. If you see that is satisfied here, then the theta operation. This theta and this theta are different. Let's not. Yeah. Then we operate this with And what we get is then check I. So these are the outputs of the codes that were asked in the question. The output and these code and code were asked for the two cases. So, this- so that is there. We move to question number I have, no, yeah. So the question number 12 is how to extract noise of a beam in the homodyne detection process using beam splitter. Very good. So let us begin with the output of a balanced homodyne detector. The output for a balanced homodyne detector this is proportional to this intensity profile, which we can write as in form of electricity. Right. This can be again broken apart in form of the local oscillator electric field amplitude and then local oscillator mode. Remember this x1 variable and yeah, that one which contains of phase information is that. So we can write it in a more. I think we can pair that definition for the reference. So if we want to extract noise, what we to extract noise? Yeah. Instead of the signal, we input vacuum film. When you do this, then the output out then is proportional to the this is the equation for short noise.
Maybe Rohit, we'll define short noise in the next class, and then I think it will be useful.
Okay, okay,
It's not
Okay.
defined.
okay. So we'll talk about this in the next. So then should I also do the next problem or leave it at here?
I think leave it as next problem will require, I think, next class. So my time is also up almost.
Okay, all right.
I think it will be better to take some questions and answers if someone has some.
All right, fine.
Yeah, are there any questions? So you can unmute yourself. In tutorial, you are allowed to unmute ourselves, so then you can do it. You can ask directly, or you can also send message. So now it seems that there are no questions.
Okay.
I assume things are understood.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah. Okay.
All
Yeah.
right, then I'll stop screen share. I'll then stop the sharing. Okay.
Yeah, you can stop sharing. I think there are no questions. So maybe we can stop it here.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Rohit and Sanjay. I think we can now conclude today.
We'll meet Monday morning.
Yeah. So next class is on Monday morning. Okay.
I wish my handwriting was a bit better looking, but this is what
Yeah.
I have. I think it
Well,
was
that was just fine. Okay. So we shall stop now.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. So let's stop the session for today. Hello. Okay. Okay.